Good evening, everyone. I'm Andy Otto, Executive Director of the Santa Fe Watershed Association. And I just want to thank you all for being here tonight. It means a lot to all of us to have your support as you've been doing for 24 years. We're coming up on our 24th full year of being around working for our little watershed. And that's pretty amazing. And when I say our, I always like to introduce the full staff, although they're more than the staff, they're more like the essence of the muscle of the Santa Fe Watershed Association. And I'll do it by tenure. So we have Raquel Baca-Thompson, Keely Jackson Kennemore, Maury Hensley, Amara Nash, and Julie Hasty. And these folks give a lot for our watershed and for all of us, and we thank them. I can't tell you how much we thank them. So again, thank you, and we hope that we can continue to keep our watershed moving forward with our little Rio de Santa Fe, and keep plugging away to make a better river and a better watershed for all of us. So with that, I get to introduce our board president, Stephen Hamp. Stephen has been on the board now for way too many years. I'm kidding, 5 or 6 years. And he's been a great president for the last 2. Stephen Hamp.
You're muted, Stephen.
Oh, am I unmuted?
Yes, perfect.
Oh, okay. Well, good evening again, and welcome to the Santa Fe Watershed Association's 7th annual Winter Watershed Benefit. My name is Stephen Hamp, and I'm the president of the board of directors for the Santa Fe Watershed Association. I will be your host for tonight's program. And it's a pleasure to be part of this exciting fundraising event, which has been such a big success over the years for the Watershed Association. Coming to you in a virtual format is not what we have done in the past, when this event was a live gathering at Hotel Santa Fe and featured a lavish silent auction. We hope you understand the need for this different approach and continue to support our fundraising effort that is so important to our organization. We look forward to moving back to our normal arrangement next year. Tonight, we have the first of a 2-part series that celebrates themes of water, healthy soils, and resilience via short films and a moderated panel discussion. The films chosen for this event have a strong tie to our Wild and Scenic Film Festival that took place virtually last July, where these themes were also illustrated. At the Santa Fe Watershed Association, our mission is to protect and restore the health and vibrancy of the Santa Fe River and its watershed. These films speak directly to these values and hopefully will encourage us to learn more about what we can do to create a sustainable outcome for the future. After the film presentations, there will be a short discussion, and we encourage our audience to submit questions to the panel using the question and answer feature in the webinar format. We will get to as many questions as time allows. Putting together our Winter Watershed Benefit takes the effort of multiple people. I'd like to thank Amara Nash for her hard work and leadership, along with the board's planning committee for handling the fine details that are required to pull this event together. I would like to thank Andy Otto and his staff for their thoughtful teamwork to make this event possible. I'd also like to thank our sponsors for their financial support for our Winter Watershed Benefit. They include Agua Fria Village Association, Lutheran Church of the Servant, Waterwise Gardening, Positive Energy Solar, and Good Earth Media. And finally, I'd like to thank the audience for joining our virtual event and supporting the Santa Fe Watershed Association through your donations. For those that haven't yet made a donation, I'd like to remind you that this is a fundraising event and your donation enables us to remain a viable and vibrant organization that can in turn give back to the Santa Fe community. Giving is easy using the Santa Fe Watershed Association website. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce our moderator for this evening, Esha Kiokio. I first met Esha in 2017 when I took the Santa Fe Watershed Association's Climate Master class, and she was the instructor. Her keen sense of conservation and her focused energy is what I remember. Esha is also an accomplished photographer and multimedia artist. Her talent shines with the Good Earth series she created that celebrates healthy soils, smart water use, and restructuring farming practices. We are fortunate to be showing 4 films from that series as part of our Winter Watershed benefit. So now it's time to turn the show over to Esha, who will introduce the Session 1 films and tonight's panel. Esha?
Thank you, Stephen. And thank you all of you for being here today to celebrate our wonderful watershed upon which we all depend for our water and all things beautiful within this city. So thank you for being here. So tonight, as Stephen mentioned, we're going to show 2 films from a series that we've called the Good Earth multimedia series. And to create these videos, I worked with Mary Charlotte Domondi, and we traveled around the state to photograph and interview people who are working to regenerate our lands and through a variety of different ways. And tonight we're going to look at Reunity Resources and C4 Farms, which is a ranch up in Tierra Amarilla. So and after that, we'll go into a discussion and take your questions. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen and we'll watch the videos.
This farm, in its iteration as a community farm, was purchased by a World War II vet in 1947. And this man, John Stevenson was his name, is kind of a local legend. He came back and decided to devote his life and his land to growing food for donation to the hungry. When we first began to lease a corner of the land, we met with him. He was already 100 at the time. I remember bringing our babies in, and he was just delighted. And he was so happy to have us join the project in the land. He called it the Golden Circle. The food waste becomes the compost, and that was like a major part of our original lease, was providing compost to the land. We have the capacity that we think we can carry on the farm and the mission of providing food to the hungry. And so we were able to receive that torch from that community farm legend. There are actually over 70 varieties being grown on the farm this year. So that biodiversity is keeping pest control manageable, keeping weed control, building soil, and the perimeter of the fields really focus on biodiversity and permaculture design.
We apply compost and worm compost basically on any row that we're going to be planting. The vegetables themselves are taking the nutrients and minerals out of the soil, but the compost that we're putting back into it is keeping it so it's always alive and always very nutrient dense.
We use seeds that are adapted to this climate, and we have inherited seeds that have been saved from this land. And I think the miracle of a seed is not to be underestimated. We have a bi-weekly farm stand, and it's our goal to just create an access point right here in Agua Fria Village, kind of on the south side of the county, and making sure that fresh, healthy food's accessible right to our neighborhood and anyone else who wants to come down and just experience the farm. We've opened up our outdoor space to a farm to table food truck called Rose's Kitchen. This feels like a way that that kind of community food and fellowship can happen in a safe way.
We launched a doorstep compost collection service earlier in the spring, right when the pandemic was happening. So that's a way in order to be able to get people involved in the compost process and in sustainability.
Ultimately, composting is just sort of a collaboration with nature, like everything's going to decay. And so we're just kind of managing this natural process. We're firm believers in the small, local, adaptable, and agile model. In response to all the food insecurity that came with the COVID pandemic this spring, we launched a collaboration with a number of other nonprofits and the county government. How can we figure out how to grow more food, right? There were major disruptions in the food supply chain and people were alarmed this spring. So the idea that we needed a more secure, more localized food system right now was really alive for people. And that opened the door with our county commissioner. Her name is Anna Hansen, and she comes to the farm stand regularly. So we said, Commissioner Hansen, we'd love to be able to grow more food. Is there any county land that we could work on? All of these partners have now gone through the whole process of taking a piece of desertified land. I mean, clay. We're out there with pickaxes trying to, find a piece of forgiveness and then bringing in compost. Over the winter, we're cover cropping so that we're really building that soil. 5 years from now, it will be this lush and abundant place that people are gathering. I think there's this kind of capitalist patriarchal separatism of like, I'm in my silo and there's only enough resources for me. One of the most important things we can do is elevate and amplify each other's strengths. And so it's always been our goal as an organization to kind of know what we do and know how it works well with others. YouthWorks comes to work here. We donate food to the YouthWorks culinary program to make meals. This spring, we were connecting together with different food donation programs in that way as well. And we all lift each other up. And I think that mutual respect shows up in the plants, in the trees, in the way that it feels to walk around the farm, that we're all in this together.
We produce what we should be calling forage finished beef. My cows don't only eat grass, they're getting legumes. They'll eat the herbaceous leaves off of willows, the thistles. We've got different clovers and alfalfas. So the grass is probably a good portion of their diet, but all the other plants make up close to half of the diet as well. We don't feed any grain ever. We don't use any antibiotics. We don't use any of the synthetic growth hormones. Routine vaccinations at branding, and then again at weaning, and that's it. And they're on pasture all year round. My family has been here in New Mexico. My grandpa says I'm the 7th generation in the family farming. I grew up right here, being a big help, I guess, to the family operation. What I am doing actually myself is quite a bit different from everybody else in the area. I still get all my water from the acequia, which has been these lands traditionally irrigated by. Instead of producing hay, like what's traditionally done, I don't cut any hay. I try to graze as many months of the year as I can. It's quite a task. There's a lot of variables you have to look at. It's a combination of keeping an eye on your pasture and the animals, making sure that they're maintaining in good health and getting enough to eat, and also at the same time monitoring the height of your plants they're leaving behind in the field, so not grazing them too short, and then irrigating right behind them so that we can get that regrowth during that rest period, so we can return to graze it later in the growing season. It takes a lot of attention to not overgraze. I try to give them a day's worth of feed and keep them moving. And what that does is it allows us to not overgraze our pasture, and we don't inhibit the root growth. So we're increasing the organic matter. We're keeping the living roots in the soil for the microbiology to feed off of and really keep the nutrient cycles functioning in our ground. The more organic matter in the soil, the healthier that soil is going to be. I love my cows. I love raising them. They make me happy. I can just go out and look at them. I like to observe them and see how they're growing. And really what I'm trying to do is train my eye to see how they're doing. Keep a well check on them, I guess. And it takes a lot of time and observation. My kids are very into the cowboy life, and they love the animals. They love being on horseback. All the romantic stuff about the cowboy life that you see. But they're still young. They're kind of at that age still where what dad does is so cool. I don't know what's going to happen when they get older. But all I want to do is just be able to give them that opportunity that I had as well. My wife and I, she helps me with so much. She keeps me on task. She likes to say that I'm the driver and she's just here for the ride. But really, she's my co-pilot. I'm a nerd at heart. Like, I like science. I feel like I'm just a scientist conducting an experiment, on an actual working operation. Because I really am. I'm still learning a lot of stuff. Hopefully, I keep learning every day till my last day, because I don't know enough about soil and how it works. I think we're barely scratching the surface of how to be good stewards of the soil.
Okay. So those are the videos that we're going to watch, and now we get to engage in a great discussion. So I'm going to introduce our panelists. We have Tejinder Siano, who you just saw in the video, and he's the co-founder of Unity Resources in Santa Fe. And I want to give a shout out. He also was just named one of the 10 who made a difference by the Santa Fe New Mexican here in Santa Fe, which is a huge honor and certainly very well deserved. They do so much at that farm. So Tejinder is with us, and Tommy Casados of C4 Farms is also with us. I hope he's having connectivity issues, so I'm hoping that he is able to join us, maybe just without the video, it sounds like. But as he mentioned in the video, he's a 7th generation New Mexican and a 4th generation rancher in Tierra Amarilla, hence the name C4 Farms. It makes it easier to remember that way. So Casados 4. And he and his family are doing some amazing work. They're keeping his pastures lush and training the next generation. And we also have Mary Charlotte Domandi. She's a kind of a local treasure in the audio world, and has a podcast now called the Down to Earth podcast. And she is interviewing people doing this incredible regenerative work all over the country, actually all over the world, on any given, I guess twice a month. She comes out with these podcasts, and we collaborated on this project. We'll talk more about that later, but I'm so grateful to have been able to collaborate with her. And she has put a lot of these shorter interviews that we've used for the videos. There's a longer piece, and she's put a lot of those online on her podcast. So we'll send you that way afterwards. So I believe we are all here now. These are our panelists. Can you all see them? Because I can't see the panelists. I see Stephen Hale.
I see everybody.
Okay, awesome. All right, so we're going to dive right into some questions, and then I hope that all of you audience members will also put some good questions in the Q&A. Just type those in, and Amara will be monitoring that and feeding us questions as well. So thank you for engaging that way. So I first want to bring up this question about our individual roles within our food systems. There are just so many great examples of, especially from Reunity Resources, of how they're engaging with the community. So Tejinder, I'm wondering if you can talk with us a little bit about the individual and how, as one person, we can play a role in improving our food systems.
Hi everyone. That's a great question. And I think at the heart of that, as I take it, is how do we just live more sustainable lives in general, and how do we live more in tune with our environment, with our nature, and with our community. And that's something that, and unfortunately, the way that our kind of society has gone, it's taken away a lot of the options that were fundamental to living quite a long time ago. And so we don't have a lot of options usually as individuals, and we don't know what they are, of ways that we can actually choose to do things and feed ourselves and live more in tune with our environment and our community and nature. So so we have to provide our own choices. And I think that's what we're really trying to do here, and really trying to spread the word about. We can grow our own food. We can, compost our food waste and create the closed loop cycle of food within our backyards. And so by knowing that that is a choice of something that we can do, we can take all of that food waste that we're not, and as much as we can reduce food waste too. I have a family of 4, and it's silly how much food waste we actually have, but luckily we live on a compost facility currently. So but it is what anyone can do, composting, whether if they can't do it at home. You can set up a worm bin, and you can do worm composting. They do a marvelous job of turning your food waste into beautiful, amazing soil that you can then put in your garden or pots, even just to grow some of your food. You could grow potted tomatoes. You could grow, you have the option, you have the choice in order to be able to do those things. And if it's too busy and you don't want to do it, then it's kind of what we're trying to hope to be able to also provide as an opportunity for people to get involved. And so you can either drop your food waste off here at the farm, or we have that doorstep program. And so that way you are literally taking that food waste out of the landfill, which creates methane gas and is polluting our environment, and turning it into a soil amendment that's turning our soils into living, vibrant, nutrient-rich soils that we can then put seeds in order to be able to grow food and eat it, and have the communion with the food that we're growing, and be a part of the cycle. And you can come to the farm and you can be a part of that whole process, and be a part of a community of us all making the choice and saying that our values of wanting to be sustainable in the way that we eat, the way that we're with nature, the way that we're with community.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And I guess I would say similarly for Tommy, you're raising cattle, and but you don't necessarily sell and through the normal channels. And so how do you engage individuals in the work that you do? And how can people plug into really knowing where their beef comes from and making the choices to get their food from sustainable growers? How can people plug into what you do? And I hope Tommy is on again. I know he got kicked off earlier.
I am here.
Oh, good.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
So I can hear you. It's a little, yes, go for it.
Is it broken up or how's that?
It's a little broken up, but go ahead.
So yeah, engaging with us and kind of, sourcing your beef and trying to source your beef locally has been pretty difficult in the past. There's not a lot of beef producers that direct market their what they produce, such as we do at C4 Farms. And so what we've really been trying to do, what we started out doing is going to the farmers market, and that really helped us start to get our name out there. But then the power of social media has been really what we've been trying to use to get our message out and talk about why we raise beef the way we do, which is because we believe that's the best for the way we raise it is the best for our human health. It's the best for our ecological health. And we really believe in the health of our local economy and what our production and local food production can do for local economies, especially and what that's where our Instagram and Facebook, because there's a huge audience that's on their information these days.
We kind of missed some of that. I have to say, Tommy, can you maybe just quickly, something like, I think we missed that you do home delivery, is that right? And how does that work if people want to plug into that?
Oh, so yeah, man, that's too bad that you missed all that. So we use the social.
Tommy, I hate to do this, but I think what we'll do is we'll give a link afterwards to people who maybe either in the chat, maybe Amra, I don't know. We'll figure out a way to send
media to drive people to, which is where we take orders and administer.
Okay. Oh, Tommy, I wish the connection were better, but we're really having a hard time hearing you. So I'm going to move on to the next question for now, and we'll send a link for how to do that. So the next one is to Mary Charlotte. Yes, Mary Charlotte, yes.
I was just going to say, Tommy's website is C4farmsbeef.com.
And to order, thank you, exactly. And I think it just got put in the chat. It's c4farms.grazecart. So yes, you can get there. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. So we'll keep your mic on, Mary Charlotte, because you're next. Okay. So with your podcast, you're really steeped in this kind of broader question of agriculture and climate solutions. So I'm wondering if you can talk with us a bit about the role that agriculture plays as a climate solution. Not only a local, more nutritious food solution, but the bigger picture as well.
So probably a lot of people know that agriculture is both a great problem and potentially also a great solution. The problems, of course, with industrial agriculture have to do in large part with the way that it destroys soil. And so when you have continually degraded soil, you're essentially mining soil just in the way you mine fossil fuels out of the ground and don't put anything back. And the idea of regenerative agriculture is kind of like, you know, the Boy Scouts, like leave the campsite better than you found it. So it's like leave the soil better than you found it. You know, do agricultural practices that don't just take from the soil, but give back, which is exactly what Tajinder was talking about and what they're so actively engaged in, and Tommy as well. One of the things that I wish were more talked about in the media, and I hope, and at things like the Glasgow climate summit, there's just not enough about agriculture, and there's a whole world of people who think that veganism will solve all the world's problems, which really isn't the case for a lot of reasons. But one of the realities is that whether you're doing animal agriculture or crop agriculture, soil is a potentially vast carbon sink. So the oceans are maxed out. They've absorbed so much carbon that the coral reefs are dying, and the ocean is warming and it's acidifying, and we've got a big disaster there. It's maxed out. Forests are maxed out. We're seeing wildfires everywhere, but soil has the potential to absorb gigatons. I mean, many gigatons of soil. I mean, of carbon from the atmosphere every year through a process known as photosynthesis. But it's more than that. It's there when soil is conducted into the ground. It stays there if you do it correctly. If you compost, if you use cover cropping, if you use manures and enliven the soils with organic matter. There's so much dead soil. You could look it up on my site if you want. The podcast is downtoearthradio.net, or you can just go to my site, radiocafe.org. But anyway, we did a show once called about what these two professors called zombie agriculture. So it looks like these plants are alive. It looks like these soils are alive, but they're dead. You know, the plants have no nutrients. The soil has no life in it. And so it's like re-enlivening that soil. So it's a potentially huge climate solution. It's very hard on a large scale to get people to do it, although some companies like General Mills seems to be making, poking in that direction a little bit. But what people like Tajinder and Tommy and the other soil stewards, the goatscaping people, the organic vegetable planters, the pecan farmers that are all in the Good Earth series that you did and that I helped on, Esha, they're all doing the work. So the idea is to get people who are eating food to understand how important it is to get your food from people who are doing that kind of soil stewardship. So even if you don't plant, a single lettuce leaf yourself, if you are buying your food from people who are doing good soil practices, you are part of a climate change solution.
Well said. Exactly. That's fantastic. Yeah, and so I also want to bring up the question of water. We're talking about the Watershed Association here. We're all about the water that flows through this beautiful city of ours. So I'm not sure who I want to direct this to. I think we only have Tajinder and Mary Charlotte now, but as we improve our soils by drawing that carbon down, maybe one of you could talk about how that affects the water, how it's absorbed, how that impacts our water use over time. Maybe, do you want to go ahead and do that, Tajinder?
Sure. Yeah. So by putting compost into our soils, you're adding all this organic matter, and then it acts as like a sponge. And when you apply water onto it, it retains that moisture in the soil for the biology, for the plants, for the roots, for the living ecosystem within it. And so the more organic matter that you're putting into it and the right mixtures, that the water is actually being retained for longer in the soil, and it's sucking the water in and holding it and making it available to plants for longer.
And where does your water come from at Reunity?
So it comes from a well. We're right on the river here, and so we're very much a part of the Santa Fe watershed. As you know, we are right here on the river, and you know, ancient historically, you know, this was a series of acequias that worked around this area, but the acequias no longer run down here, and so we have a well on the farm that yeah. We will, and so then underneath the dry Santa Fe River, there's an underwater river as well. And so we get the water from the underwater river.
And I understand it's some of the best water you can find. It's quite good water.
It's amazing, man. No, it's incredible water, absolutely. And so we use drip irrigation for the farm, and so a combination of using compost and drip, we're able to get the water put directly on the plants, and then the compost is helping retain that moisture for the plants. And so we use less water than we would if we weren't using those practices.
That's great. Every time I go to Reunity Resources, so I'm going to keep you on the spot for a minute here.
Sure.
I find that you have developed some new program. You've expanded in some beautiful, amazing way. And so not all of what you do was showcased in the film that we just watched. And so I'm wondering if maybe you can talk about some of the developments that have happened over the past year or so that people can come down to the farm to experience.
Sure. Yes. We're trying to put a lot of love into this land and be stewards for this land and be stewards for our community. And so we're trying to really build community and really bring people here. During the pandemic, it was or during the height of it, really, it became very important for people to feel safe where they were going and to be able to know where their food was coming from, knowing that it wasn't being touched by, you know, who knows how many people. So our farm stand has developed, and people can come and get vegetables and interact with the farm in that way. We have the doorstep we have the compost drop off where people can come 24 hours, 7 days a week to drop off their food waste in the bins on the farm. We have a farm camp during the summer where 40 kids between the ages of 6 and 12 are coming down and engaging with this property and arts and crafts and with how food is grown. There's the farm to table food truck that's open during this season. And then there's pre-pandemic thousands of school groups, volunteers, people coming and interacting with this land and learning from it, being healed by it, being nurtured from it, contributing to it. And then we've also been having events this year as well. So we would have music events in order to be able to build further community and to be able to be a place. I like to think of it as that we're trying to give our community a big hug. We're here for a hug. And you can interact with us in a lot of different ways, and just encourage any way that suits and works for you to come get a hug.
It's so beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, I really so appreciate all that you've created for Santa Fe. It really is a beautiful oasis for everyone to interact with on their own terms. Yeah, it's great. Thank you. And Mary Charlotte, I mentioned briefly at the introduction, but I'd like for you to talk a little bit about, you have turned their longer interview, which we shrunk down to make this video. There's a lot of richness in that longer video, and you've turned that into a podcast as well as some of the others. Maybe you could talk about talk about that for us, Mary Charlotte.
Well, so as you said before, I do this podcast on regenerative agriculture. And so of course, you know, the way when you make a 4-minute video, you've got 2 hours of audio that go into it and innumerable photographs, or if you're doing video, you just, you know, hours and hours of footage. So we had a wonderful conversation with Tajinder and Juliana, and that is on the website. And it's a lot of, it's good because there's so many stories in it. There's a story about how Juliana, when she was a little kid in science fair, decided that she was going to, I'm not going to get it right, Tajinder, you can correct me, but, or if Juliana's there, oh, she's there. Was it build a machine that takes bad stuff out of the air and does magic and then puts good stuff back out? And it turned out that you were inventing photosynthesis.
It's true. It's true. I had an addiction to Calvin and Hobbes comics. So the idea that a cardboard box could be anything, figured there might as well be one that solved all of our climate problems.
Yeah.
That photosynthesis had already been invented, turns out.
Yeah, it turns out, but you know, you reinvented it, which I love, because that's what we do. You know, in a sense, there's nothing new under the sun. And one of the things that I've been thinking about lately, and I don't know if this is off the subject or not, but we Americans have a kind of religious addiction to innovation, as if innovation is going to solve all our problems. And it's not necessarily the case. In a sense, you could make the argument that innovation has gotten us into the troubles that we're in. And a lot of the solutions, a lot of the climate solutions, and especially a lot of the agriculture solutions are about doing really, I mean, my show is called Down to Earth, but what these guys are doing, very down to earth solutions, doing things that were done 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, moving earth, there are people who are like changing the flow of water on hills by moving rocks and making simple dams, you know, to slow down water. I mean, things that are not high tech, they're not Silicon Valley, they're not venture capital startups. They're things that people can do if they are really engaged with nature and with the environment. And it's not so much about innovating new stuff. It's about using knowledge that's already there and using it. I mean, when I see Tajinder and Juliana and this idea of you know, giving a hug to the community, it's doing it with heart, you know, it's doing it with love and understanding. And I think, you know, we factor that out as sort of like soft, you know, ideas, whereas, you know, that love of nature, I think, is a part of the understanding that gives rise to really good soil practices. And when we talk about, you know, making this earth, restoring it to a kind of livable place, innovation alone ain't going to get us there. It's something much deeper, I think, and a really different way of thinking, and really, in a lot of ways, slowing down to nature's time, slowing down to the time of the seasons, of reproductive cycles, of our own cycles, you know, getting 8 hours of sleep a night and things like that. So all of these things are part of this picture of how we think about and solve water problems and climate problems. It's not just some kind of like technology that's going to save us, because I don't think it is.
Yeah, I mean, it really makes me think about your work at the farm, Tajinder and Juliana, with the next generation. It's so important to get their hands in the ground, as you well know, and have them playing with those worms and pulling a carrot out and eating that delicious carrot with soil still on it, you know, free microbes. And I just absolutely love your work there with as much as you can right now. I don't know how much you're able, but with farm camp and classes who come, I think that's really critical work to keep that alive in kids. I don't know if you want to speak to any of that. that work there?
That's kind of my department. And yeah, we just had a group here yesterday. And it was so delightful. It was a bunch of ninth graders. And if you remember ninth grade, boy. Tricky times in growing up. But you know, for them to there was just such joy to be out of the classroom. And it was, you know, the logistics are trickier in terms of how groups get here, and you know but we're outdoors, and so we are able to gather and host again. But really seeing people figure out, they were surprisingly delighted learning how to braid the long white floating row cover. As we're putting the fields to bed for the winter, we have these 100-foot swaths of fabric that we kind of crochet around our arms, and that was like a highlight. And harvesting broccoli and having them find, first of all, it was a delight for me to be harvesting broccoli in December, albeit an uneasy delight, because last year a snowstorm in September took out 10 beds of broccoli. And so the fact that we still have it was just like, this has been an amazing broccoli year, you know. But showing them what an aphid is and joking about eating, you know, we always talk about insects as a good protein source and good microbes, but for just to see them kind of giddy, getting their hands in the ground, harvesting and clean, you know, pulling irrigation lines and braiding this row cover. Farm camp was this was our first year, and I'm both like proud and embarrassed to say that we hosted 270 kids over the course of 10 weeks. And our infrastructure consisted of like 10 Rubbermaid bins and 3 metal shelf, like wire racks to put their backpacks on. And so I'm really happy now to be saying, okay, I guess there was a demand for that. I guess that, you know, we're going to continue with that. And, you know, how about we build a shed before next season? So, you know, that we do have this kind of, or we're at this kind of organizational growth phase where we can test and try things out and then say, okay, like yes, there's a need for that, because equally we can try things and say, oh, that isn't, you know, that isn't what people are showing up for. So let's not do that again. So just trying to be responsive to to what the needs are, and particularly I'm excited because there's a state funding piece that I was sitting in the House Appropriations Committee on Zoom for today, where they've allocated money to outdoor equity, which I think is really relevant to everything the Watershed Association does. And this year we were a grant recipient from them, and all of the money goes to scholarships for farm camp next year, making access totally free and affordable for families. And so that is a piece that's close to my heart.
That is fantastic. I mean, that equity piece is something that's really at the core of what you do on so many levels. And so that's really exciting and well-deserved that you got that grant. Yeah.
Thank you. We're happy to.
I'm noticing we have a question for you in the Q&A that I want to just bring up. And the question is, does Reunity have experience with heirloom desert adapted seeds, for example, developed by surrounding tribal communities? You mentioned in the video that you inherited some seeds from John Stevenson. And I'm wondering, yeah, well, just answer that question if you would.
Yeah, shall I speak to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Yes and no. So we have some experience with them, largely through our collaboration with other community organizations, specifically the Three Sisters Collective, that has brought in seeds from their various pueblos. Three Sisters Collective, if you're not familiar, is an arts and social justice organizing group led by Native American women. And we work with them on projects here, including hosting an Indigenous Peoples Day celebration, and also on this county land across the river that we hope to continue stewarding and regenerating over the years. So growing seeds that have been passed down from from family members, from tribes, saved from gardens, is absolutely something that we're doing. And on a production side of things, There's also an efficiency factor that we like to take into account when we're doing our crop planning. So a large section, basically that's the crop plan that we're making that includes our ambitious donation goals and farm stand sales goals to cover our labor costs. We use seeds that have been lab tested so that we know they have a high germination rate, because the amount of time and resources it takes to put an individual seed in an individual pot, when we're doing that by a factor of thousands, it's a lot of time and energy. And so we have on all of our sort of permaculture design perimeters and our learning garden and medicinal garden and different patches and plots are where those heirloom and high desert adapted seeds are featured. The seeds that we're purchasing from those lab tested groups are also, many of them are also high desert adapted, but not in that same sort of traditional grassroots way.
Mm-hmm.
That answered the question.
Yeah, great. I think that answered it for me, but Tony might have another question. I don't know, but it sounded, yeah, that seemed like it answered the question. Well, that's all the questions that I have right now, unless, did any of you want to say any parting words to the community?
I want to say thank you. Thank you for hosting this. Thank you to the Santa Fe Watershed Association and all the great work that everyone's doing. And this is I'm just grateful that there's people who have been committed to these things for a long time now, and really trying to protect our natural resources and make the quality of life better for the people who live here. So I'm grateful for you all. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Me too. I'm so grateful for all of you and all the incredible work you do. I'm super grateful for the Watershed Association. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe Andy, I was thinking maybe Andy could leave us with the parting words, because I'd love to hear more about how he's thinking about the issues that we've been talking about tonight.
Well, I just unmuted my my microphone just for you, Mary Charlotte. No, I'll throw in a couple of summary things. The soil health. Just a week and a half ago, I was up in the upper municipal watershed with Forest Service folks, and we were talking about the soils and exactly what's going on. Remember, the upper watershed has been closed for 88 or 89 years now. And to me, it's not right. There's still something back. It's kind of like you look at a river and you kind of go, that's not right. Well, the same with the hillsides up there, and the soils. Now, of course, remember it was closed in 1932 because of super erosion going on. There was overgrazing and all the brush and all the trees were taken off it. And now it's all come back, but the soils haven't. So the soil health is going to be one of those challenges that we're going to get to deal with here. This is sort of like our turn. So that's such a big part of it all for watershed folks too. But I'm going to throw in my last shot is my story on Tejender. We were looking to find some water to water the plantings that the county had done below San Isidro Crossing. And we needed to get water from somewhere. And Tejender, I asked him, I said, can we buy some water from you? And he said, no. He said, I'll give it to you. And I thought, wow, that's Tejender. And then it was the argument. No, we're going to pay for it. He said, no, I'm going to give it to you. Anyway, so that to me is what Tejender and Juliana have been like for this community. So thank you. And it's all part of the puzzle, all part of making this a community and a healthy watershed. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. All right, and now we're going to turn it over to Stephen Hamp, who's going to close us out. Thank you so much, Stephen.
Thanks, Esha. And that does wrap up session 1 of our Winter Watershed Benefit. And thanks to Esha and our panelists for delivering a strong message and addressing the questions that were raised in depth. There's a lot of good information. I think I even learned some more about healthy soils tonight. A big thanks goes out to our audience for supporting our fundraising event tonight. And I'd like to close just to remind people, session 2 of our Winter Watershed Benefit will be aired on Thursday, December 9th, again from 6 to 7 p.m. Those 2 videos and the focus will be on water systems and restoration techniques. I think those are some good topics for our Santa Fe weather that we have right now. So don't forget, everyone, to make a donation out there, the audience, and we'll see you on Thursday. Thanks again.